your walk. Okay? Own your walk. And then stop arguing with what he says. But it's inconvenient and it's going to cause suffering and pain within. Yes, it is. And not because he wants to cause that, but because the world you live in is not his world. In other words, they're not submitted under him. If the world was, you'd have none of these issues. You would never be invited to a graduation on Saturday. You'd never be invited to a wedding on Saturday. You'd never be invited to a funeral on Saturday. You'd never be asked to work on Saturday. If it was his world. But he has allowed this world to be under a different influence for right now. Okay? And so, stop making it his fault. If the world would come under his authority, you would never have these issues. Nobody would ever, you'd never have to ask anybody, is there pork in that? Did you use lard to cook that? You'd never have to ask, because nobody would be doing it. So it's hard because the world is not doing it, because the world is not submissive. And he's called you at this time, the hardest time in history. Not like this moment, like today in 2019. What I'm saying is like the time of man walking in the flesh, where we're being taught Torah, without like Yeshua in the millennium, where he's there, actually the word going forth from Zion, etc. This is the hardest time when the world is not his. In other words, the world is not submitted under his authority, yet you have to choose to submit under his authority and walk against the grain, against the stream. This is the hardest time to do it, and that really can put a smile on your Father in the heavens' face. Because you're doing it without all of the ease of, how hard was it in Israel, literally in the beginning, when they first came into the land and they had the pillar and the cloud and all this other stuff, and everything was great for them to keep everything. No problem. And yet still they chose to, what happened? Wait, they went through different lands and they saw what other people were doing and they started to go among instead of coming out from among. As a matter of fact, they brought them in among, right? We see that, right? Going into Pinchas. They brought them in among. And that influence led them astray. You see this with Shlomo, with King Solomon. All the influence of all the wives and the pagan stuff they brought in. Bringing this stuff in. You got to be separate. But it's not easy, Rabbi. Who said it was easy? Well, the church did all my life. Well, that's part of the problem with that system, isn't it? Okay? The book never says it's easy. Yeshua himself never said it was easy. It just doesn't say that. He says, I've suffered, so will you. You need to pick up your cross and follow me. Bear your burdens and understand you are going to have to go through a pretty tough deal. I'm sorry, look, did you read the small print? It's all the same size. Thank you. You remember I said that. Owen's been listening. That's the other half of the joke, right? I said, have you read the small print? And I said, look, there is no small print. It's all of the same size. Read the contract. The contract says, by the way, the contract is it's not this gigantic long contract. I know you have a giant book in front of you, but the contract is simple. You do what he says and he takes you as his people. It's not complicated. What's complicated is doing it in a world that is not his at the moment. By his, I mean, yeah, sure, he owns everything, but he's allowing it to do whatever it wants. He's allowing it to not have to be under his authority, to choose for itself, to see that self-sovereignty and allowing Hasatan influence only brings ruin. And this is the reality that we live in.